Tonight, critical cross-examination, a tense back and forth in the trial of Donald Trump. Stormy Daniels defends her claims.
This is a Frankenstein case. They took a dead misdemeanor.
While the former president's legal team calls again for a mistrial.
My body, my choice.
The abortion debate flares up on Parliament Hill.
To acknowledge the humanity of the preborn.
Also, police under scrutiny after failing to find a missing man's remains in his own truck.
It is devastating and it is heart-wrenching.
Plus, bike lane safety, concerns after a scary moment involving a young girl.
I knew that incidents like this are going to happen.
And identifying some mysterious wreckage.
I just want to know what it is. Maybe it's Elon Musk's or something.
The out-of-this-world theories on debris found in Saskatchewan.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina.
Good evening, everyone. Another extraordinary day in a New York courtroom today as lawyers for former U.S. President Donald Trump tried to discredit a porn star's claims she had a sexual encounter with him in a Nevada hotel. Defense lawyers suggested Stormy Daniels, the prosecution's star witness, was making the whole thing up and was profiting from the story. Daniels repeatedly pushing back. Trump, meanwhile, who was keen to respond, asked the judge for an exemption to a gag order he has already violated 10 times in his criminal trial. The request was denied. CTV's Washington Bureau Chief Joy Malbin on the blistering and combative cross-examination.
Once again, Donald Trump faced the woman at the heart of his criminal trial. Stormy Daniels, one of two women the prosecution says Trump paid hush money to protect his chances at becoming president. Trump's legal team tore into Daniels' testimony about an alleged 2006 sexual encounter at a hotel during a golf tournament. Trump lawyer Susan Necklace accusing Daniels of lying. "You made all this up, right?" Daniels insisted over and over again, "My story is the same. It was dinner, but we never got any food." Necklace attacked Daniels' credibility, her motivation, even her line of work, making pornography. "You have a lot of experience making phony stories about sex appear real." Daniels shot back, "The sex is real, just like what happened to me in that room." The defense tried to portray Daniels as a porn star extortionist, mocking her for hawking merchandise, a book, even hosting a reality ghost hunting show. Not unlike Trump, Daniels testified. Prosecutors say Trump's fixer Michael Cohen paid Daniels $130,000 to stay silent just days before the 2016 election.
You're a star, they let you do it.
The campaign was already reeling from the Access Hollywood tape that damaged Trump's reputation. Madeleine Westerhout, who worked for Trump, testified the tape so rattled the Republican National Convention, there were conversations about how it would be possible to replace Trump as a candidate. Leaving court, Trump was fuming.
He's a corrupt judge and he's totally conflicted. And I got to get back on the campaign trail. I'm not supposed to be here.
Trump is not happy with this judge who refused his request to modify Trump's gag order. Trump really wanted to respond to Stormy Daniels' testimony. And once again, the judge denied Trump's request for a mistrial. Omar?
Joy Malbin in Washington, where the U.S. Supreme Court delivered a historic ruling that overturned the nationwide right to an abortion nearly 2 years ago, reigniting a major fault line in America. But there are also deep divisions in this country. And today, thousands demonstrated in Ottawa. As CTV's Judy Trin reports, the NDP is now concerned the Conservatives will use that momentum to justify rolling back reproductive rights.
Families, religious groups, and students bussed in from Catholic high schools and private Christian ones showed up for the annual March for Life. Their goal, pushing for a law to ban abortions.
To continuously be a presence here on Parliament Hill to call our MPs, our parliamentarians, and politicians across the country to secure full legal protection for the preborn.
My body, my choice!
On the Hill, the number of pro-choice demonstrators were far outnumbered by anti-abortion supporters. The New Democrats warned that women's rights were under threat. The Conservatives voted against a pharmacare bill championed by the NDP that would provide free birth control pills and IUDs to 9 million women.
They have showed it through their votes that they do not support reproductive rights. And allowing MPs on a regular basis to stand in the House of Commons and push an anti-choice agenda.
Earlier this week, an Alberta MP tabled a petition calling for a law to stop abortions.
Canada is only one of two nations in the world that have zero laws protecting the preborn.
At least 2 Conservative MPs attended the march, allowing the Liberals to deflect opposition criticism about the rising cost of living.
It is time for the Conservatives to stand up and clearly say, are they going to defend a woman's right to choose? Because what we're hearing from them is they want to end it.
2 years ago, during the Conservative leadership race, Pierre Poilievre stated that he was pro-choice. Now, in an email statement, a spokesperson reiterates that the Conservatives will not legislate abortion if elected. Omar.
All right, Judy, thanks. Police have made another crucial arrest in connection with Canada's biggest gold heist. A 36-year-old Ontario man was taken into custody at Toronto's Pearson International after he landed from India on Monday. That same airport is where suspects pulled off a daring heist of nearly $24 million in cash and gold last year. This arrest is the 6th in the case. Ontario provincial police are facing questions tonight about their search for a missing man they failed to find, even though his body was in a trailer where they claim to have already looked. Here's CTV's Garrett Barry.
A mystery for a grieving family and community. How could police fail to find a missing man who was inside his own vehicle?
It is just so tough on a small community, knowing that it took so long to find out, what happened to Brian and to bring closure. And it's going to be a tough year. Closure doesn't come easy.
Ontario Provincial Police say they did an extensive investigation using dogs, ground, and air searchers, but 51-year-old Brian Lush wasn't located until his truck was shipped back to Newfoundland from the gas station in Ontario where he was last seen. Police in this province say when that vehicle was returned through a ferry crossing to the town of Port aux Basques, Lush was found in the trailer. The province's chief medical examiner is now investigating. There's no evidence to suggest that foul play is a factor. When Lush was first reported missing, Ontario police said they did find his truck and saw that his personal belongings were inside the vehicle. His death has shocked the community of Stephenville, where Lush lived with his wife and children.
As a community, we want to do everything that we can to support them from the mourning of their loss, because it is devastating and it is heart-wrenching.
Ontario police will conduct an internal review of what happened in this investigation. They said they will share the results of that review with Brian Lush's family. In a statement today, the OPP offered condolences to his family and friends, saying, "We recognize this has been a traumatic time for them as they grieve the loss of their loved one." Garrett Barry, CTV News, St. John's.
Shocking video of an accident involving a cyclist and a young girl in Montreal has sparked questions about the rules of the road. And a warning, the video is hard to watch. Here's CTV's Quebec Bureau Chief Geneviève Beauchemin.
It's a heart-stopping video. A 4-year-old girl leaving her home to board her school bus. She waits as the driver puts out the flashing stop sign before heading out across the street. The cyclist likely never saw the child before she crossed the bike lane. The little girl, luckily, was not seriously hurt. Montreal police say cyclists, like motorists, must stop for school buses.
Go fast. Yeah, so it's a one-way street. And
the images of the crash on this street have shaken the neighborhood.
So it's the third incident in the last year and a half just on this street here.
So what do you think is the solution here?
Awareness, and I think they should use the same rigor as they do to motorists.
To those tempted to say cyclists are more likely to ignore the rules of the road, experts studying bike lanes and safety say not so.
No matter which mode of transportation you use, we all break the rules about the same amount. So like drivers tend to break the rules the same amount as cyclists, the same as pedestrians, the same as everybody else. But we break the rules in different ways.
Bicycles cause much fewer fatal accidents than cars, but there are more and more cyclists crisscrossing the country's expanding bike lane networks as cities embrace active transport, key to unclogging congested arteries. But the video is a reminder of the responsibilities of sharing the road.
That particular, incident, there's a lot of things going on. And I mean, that's the challenge with lots of urban environments that are busy, is there's a lot of things going on. And our overall goal, like the overall traffic safety goal for all of those complex urban environments, is to slow everybody down.
This to ensure children heading to school are safe. Geneviève Beauchemin, CTV News, Montreal.
And also in Montreal, the man who struck and killed a 7-year-old with his car in 2022 pleaded guilty today.
He's very sorry, and he's a father. He has kids, and I don't know how you survive.
Maria Legenkovska, a Ukrainian refugee, was walking to school when she was hit. The driver of the car, 46-year-old Juan Manuel Becerra Garcia, failed to stop after the accident. The Crown and Defense are both seeking a sentence of 1 year to be served at home. Tributes are pouring in for Canadian writer, journalist, and political commentator Rex Murphy, who has died after a battle with cancer, according to the National Post, the newspaper he wrote for. A proud Newfoundlander, Murphy hosted the nationwide call-in show Cross Country Checkup on CBC Radio for more than 2 decades. Former Prime Minister Stephen Harper called him one of the most intelligent and fiercely free-thinking journalists, while former Ontario Premier Kathleen Wynne wrote, "Rex Murphy didn't like my politics and I didn't like his, but he was a character and will be missed a lot." Rex Murphy was 77 years old. A groundbreaking Canadian study is getting closer to a major medical breakthrough. Researchers in Toronto are working on a way to diagnose CTE in a living person. The brain disorder, believed to be caused by repeated head injuries, is increasingly found in athletes, but only can be detected after they've died. CTV's Adrian Gabriel has more on the team working to change that.
Hope comes in the form of small vials of radioactive pharmaceuticals inside this Toronto research lab.
When this is up and running, inside is radioactive.
Correct, yes, it's radioactive.
Neil Vastev is the scientific director at the Centre for Addiction and Mental Health. He and his team are just weeks away from a first-of-its-kind human clinical study.
If we can image CTE in life, we can start working towards stopping the disease in its tracks.
Chronic traumatic encephalopathy, also known as CTE, is a brain disorder believed to be caused by repetitive head injuries. Today, the disease can only be diagnosed after death during a post-mortem examination. Vastev's upcoming human study is hoping to change that and make it possible to detect CTE in the living using a new radiopharmaceutical, also known as a tracer, which is injected into patients and then picked up by this scanner.
This apparatus was where the one that we're taking to human was developed on.
And there's the youngster Fleiser with his first Grey Cup tackle.
Tim Fleiser was the first CFL player in history to win 4 Grey Cups with 4 different teams.
Well, playing football in both university and playing for 10 years professionally, had 3 diagnosed concussions.
Now the executive director of the Concussion Legacy Foundation, Fleiser believes that due to his exposure to traumatic brain injuries, he likely has CTE, and he plans to be one of the first people to take part in the human study at CAMH to try and find out.
I think it's less about my own peace of mind as much as it is being able to do something about it. It'll be an absolute game changer.
Changing lives for the better is at the top of Vastev's list.
We're also trying to do this in life beyond just contact sports athletes.
Early and accurate diagnosis could lead to opportunities for clinical trials, even eventually a therapy with the ultimate aim of stopping or reversing the life-altering symptoms. Adrian Gabriel, CTV News, Toronto.
And the health of Canada's economy is stable, but risks remain, according to the head of Canada's central bank.
Over the past year, households, businesses, banks, and other financial institutions have taken proactive steps to adjust to higher interest rates and weather economic shocks. This adjustment still has some ways to go and continues to present risks.
The Bank of Canada says renters who tend to have lower incomes and small businesses have been hit hard by inflation. And while mortgage payments have risen, households have higher wages and savings, and they're adjusting their spending patterns. There's also cautious optimism from officials on the front lines of Canada's wildfires. So far, the start of the season has been far less dramatic, fewer than 20 out-of-control wildfires compared to 50 this time last year. But officials warn that could change rapidly. The risk of hot, dry weather remains high, particularly in Western Canada. An increasingly heated diplomatic exchange between the U.S. president and Israel's prime minister, a day after Joe Biden said he would stop sending weapons for an all-out assault on Rafah. Benjamin Netanyahu defied today, saying his country was prepared to stand alone. According to the UN, an estimated 80,000 people have fled Rafah this week after heavy shelling was reported in the southern Gaza city. The UN also says no aid or fuel has entered Gaza for several days. Coming up, the push to take accessibility to new heights.
I'd love to be able to get on a plane and stay in my wheelchair. The reality is that we're far from that day.
A first-of-its-kind summit to demand change to air travel. Plus, Justin and Hailey Bieber's big announcement.
I'm starting to be open to.
Terrifying moments on board a Boeing 737 passenger plane that skidded off the runway in Senegal. Dozens of passengers scrambled to safety, sliding out the emergency exits in the capital city of Dakar after the Air Senegal flight overshot the runway and caught fire during takeoff. 10 people were injured, 4 of them seriously. Boeing has not commented on the incident. Here at home, air travel horror stories from people with disabilities were in the spotlight today in Ottawa. Advocates are calling for major improvements to accessibility on board major airlines. CTV's Annie Bergeron-Oliver on how they're demanding the government and the industry get on board.
For people with disabilities, flying is frequently an anxiety-provoking experience that rarely runs smoothly.
So I kind of expect that there's going to be something, but I get really tired of being the educator and having to train the staff on things that they should know.
Robert Fenton travels a lot for work. He wants airlines to step up and treat passengers with accessibility needs better.
We're busy people too. We have lives too. And I think that's sometimes forgotten.
Today, the stories and accessibility needs of people with disabilities were front and center as advocates, federal ministers, and airline executives gathered in Ottawa for the first ever Air Accessibility Summit.
We've been talking about different experience lived by people with disability. We've seen concrete example, and we said that's enough.
Parliament recently brought airline executives before committee as part of a study on accessibility in the sector, stemming from several high-profile cases of wheelchairs being broken and even a passenger being forced to drag herself onto the plane. Now the airlines say changes are imminent.
There's 2 issues that always seem to emerge as the most prominent. The first is the treatment of mobility aids, and that we can do a better job with that. So we'll have more to say on that in the coming weeks.
I'm hoping to have a meaningful dialogue about collaboration.
The founder of Access Now, Mayan Ziv, says improvements are long overdue, that now is the time for swift action, not apologies.
Tomorrow, I'd love to be able to get on a plane and stay in my wheelchair. The reality is that we're far from that day. I don't think it's really about any quick fix, but I'd say the most fundamental one is a cultural shift.
Ottawa passed legislation in 2019 aimed at making air travel more accessible. But since then, advocates say regulators have largely refused to lay large enough fines to force airports and airlines to change how they operate. Omar?
All right, Annie, thanks. Still ahead. Big news from a Canadian pop icon.
I'm starting to be open to.
A CFL star was back on the field today, just 2 days after being suspended by the league for violating its gender-based violence policy. Toronto Argos quarterback Chad Kelly was spotted with the team without equipment at practice. He was banned for 2 preseason and 9 regular season games after an investigation into a lawsuit filed by a former female coach alleging a pattern of sexual harassment by Kelly and a wrongful dismissal by the team. Argos GM Pinball Clemens says the team will support Kelly and take steps to make sure this doesn't happen again.
Just reinforcing that the idea of strengthening the processes of our team to ensure that we're providing a safe and nurturing environment for our people.
A big decision by the Toronto Maple Leafs today, firing head coach Sheldon Keefe after yet another disappointing playoff run.
I didn't get it done in the playoffs. I didn't help push our team over the line and deliver. I accept responsibility for that. No excuses. That's the job. I didn't get it done.
Keefe was behind the bench for the past 5 seasons and made the playoffs all 5 times. But 4 out of the 5 were first-round exits, including the latest loss to the Boston Bruins. Leafs management are expected to explain the decision at a news conference tomorrow. Big Leafs fan and pop superstar Justin Bieber is about to become a father. The singer posted this music video to Instagram showing him and his wife Haley renewing their wedding vows. She can be seen showing off her baby bump as the camera zooms in. The couple has been married since 2018. Congrats to them. After the break.
You've never seen anything like that before. It's quite heavy.
Unraveling the mystery behind these objects that fell out of the sky over Saskatchewan. A Saskatchewan family is looking to the sky for answers after they say pieces of debris fell out of nowhere. CTV's Alison Bamford explains.
Just another day checking fields. Cody and Barry Sawchuk had found junk on their land before, but nothing quite like this.
It's quite heavy.
Nearly 2 meters tall, weighing 100 pounds.
You wouldn't want to get hit in the head with this.
Both believe this and a smaller piece came from the sky.
Just want to know what it is. Maybe it's Elon Musk's or something.
He laughs, but a couple years ago, reports of similar debris spotted in Australia turned out to be remnants from a SpaceX mission. Harvard astronomer Jonathan McDowell believes this debris is also the product of SpaceX. He tracked a debris re-entry over Saskatchewan in late February, likely the trunk of a spaceship coming back to Earth.
If you've seen a shooting star before, it's like that, but like pieces falling off of it, right? You can see like little bits falling off.
The Canadian Space Agency says it's looking into it. SpaceX did not return our request for comment, but experts say it's not unheard of to find something like this on the prairies.
Wollaston Lake in 1968, a hunter found something kind of like that. It was a little more metallic, but it turned out to have been part of a satellite.
Often called space junk, and astronomers say the more we launch from Earth, the more we could see come back down.
Anything that doesn't burn up in Earth's atmosphere makes it to the ground.
Luckily this time, the landing pad was a wide open field that the Sawchucks plan to search for more unearthly surprises. Alison Bamford, CTV News, Regina.
And that's a snapshot of this Thursday. Morella is here tomorrow. For all of us at CTV National News, good night.